Hello, YouTube. It's a great pleasure to be connecting into you from Wānaka in our new home. We made it down to the deep south. Today, I'm going to be talking about the Southern Cradle and how the Southern Cradle is open and how it's a key part of the Cristic infrastructure build out. Before I get into that, a announcement. Alea and I will be doing a live immersion event in London on the 20th of December. We're going to be heading off to Egypt very soon in about 10 days, doing the Egypt mission where we're taking a group over there looking to open the first vault, 001. That first vault is going to open a massive flame in the morphogenetic field of Egypt. And it's going to be the master key that's going to start unlocking these other 11 vaults around the world to bring the flame into the morphogenetic field of our planet. That's a massive piece and key of the overall sort of, let's call it Cristic civilizational blueprint plans. Hopefully we're going to be successful. You'll be able to do a little bit of tracking on that, and there'll be a way to join us virtually and pick up some of the energy and codes as that starts to happen. But for now, I want to introduce the opportunity for those of you who live in Europe to join us live on the 20th of December. Immediately after Egypt, we'll be coming in and releasing many of those codes, awareness, the topic of conversation. It's a one-day event. If you live just outside of London, anywhere else in Europe, you want to come in for the day, maybe you'll do some Christmas shopping in London. We'll be sort of discussing Cristic embodiment in the age of AI. And I think it's a very important discussion between Cristic Oversoul embodiment versus synthetic, and how artificial intelligence has been infusing itself with a lot of people's oversouls, and how there's a lot of synthetic entanglements going on, and how you can rid yourself of it. And we'll be doing a transmission also there in London, and so people can get a feel of the Cristic current wave, especially hot off the heels of the Egypt Vault 001 being opened. So yeah, it's exciting. We haven't been to Europe for a while, of course, and living down under in Aotearoa. It is a long way away. It's difficult for often people to get to see us live. So if you're interested in coming in and being in a live field with us in a important discussion topic, Cristic embodiment in the age of AI, there's a link in the description below, and you can join us live. Okay, with that announcement being made, exciting developments here as we've made our way down to the south. There was a ritual that was able to take place that migrated node 000 and vault 000, which is the let's call it the root node for the vault system. And just as a reminder, how this Cristic architecture is unfolding on the planet, there are thrones, these governance thrones, which have previously been held and seated by, let's call it sort of more inversion, cabal-based oversouls who have been locking down the planet and creating these reversals, are starting to be reclaimed by Cristic oversouls, so that Mother, Father, God can stream the original Edenic design through those oversouls, through the cleared reversals, and they stream down. And what's missing is the vaults. Those vaults can contain a lot of the keys and codes and blueprint design plans, as well as the frequency and the flame, to have the law held by the thrones streamed into the vaults, which then are the master keys to open up the current of God's divine will to come into the planet to help restore the Edenic blueprints. The Edenic blueprints are simply the pre-fall templates that where our planet used to be at the Cristic civilizational standard or height. When I talk about a Cristic civilization, this is not theology. This is not religion. This is, when I talk about Cristic, I'm just talking about a current of consciousness that is a 12th dimensional consciousness, is that Cristic principles. These are just simply the blueprints of how we live in an exalted high civilizational state, the way that our architecture and our civilization and humanity lives in harmony with each other and the planet, working together in a, let's call it a evolutionary spiral that is in the highest evolutionary blueprint of our original design. Of course, unfortunately, we had the fall. During the fall, we had some quite, let's say, severe DNA regression, where our original DNA blueprints regressed enormously, and we ended up, falling and ended up into these enormous egoic patterns of trauma and shame held through our ancestral grids for hundreds of generations that we're now wading through and clearing. Many of you out there are doing this deeper work, clearing through the trauma, getting our nervous systems back online, and then looking to rebuild our DNA architecture, being able to have more of our higher consciousness fuse into our physiology, where our oversouls begin to stream through. So that's kind of, what many people have been working through. We are starting to get the very seeding return of the Adam Codman templates. Our immortal architecture is beginning to have those seeds of starting to awaken and come back online and being held through. Our original design is the angelic Diamond Sun DNA template, 12-strand energetic potential, which would then open up those corridors of consciousness to allow our oversoul, which is stationed in dimensions 7, 8, and 9, to stream in. DNA strands 7, 8, and 9 would need to be open, and then eventually you begin to unlock DNA strands 10, 11, 12, and then your avatar consciousness. Once the oversoul pillars have been braided in, oversoul pillars, have 12 oversoul pillars. These 12 oversoul pillars have to be braided and embodied through the gates of our energy centers and embodied into our tissues, right into our physiology, into our breath, through our breath, into our bones, into our marrow, so that our oversoul is super deep. And once that happens, then the avatar consciousness opens up. I'm now starting to provide some coaching for people who want to learn this process and do the relevant clearings needed. I'll place a link in the description below. This is an exciting, let's call it prototyping group for deeper oversoul embodiment. And so this is really this pathway of growth that is available for us now on this accelerated return. The other piece I want to share, which I think is a little bit exciting, was the seeding of this, let's call it Southern Cradle, that has just opened up here since the Vault 000, which also holds the Krystic Quantum Financial Operating System Codex. It's the root node for the other vaults, including Vault 001, which is the big one we're looking to open in Egypt. If Egypt gets opened successfully, it will create a ripple effect and make it much, much easier to open up the second vault in France, which I think we will probably go and physically visit sometime in 2026, for those of you interested in those sort of more Grail lines and that second vault opening in Lourdes, France. This next piece I did not know about until we got down here to Wānaka, was the Cradle network. So the Cristic civilization rebuild has 5 key stages. These 5 key stages are really important to hold the Cristic architecture in the grids, because essentially the grid work, what's happening in the grids, is really key and important, because the humans, of course us, reside on the grids, and the grids have been laced with these synthetic inversions from this AI agenda that's happened over thousands and thousands of years. This age of AI that we're in right now is just simply because humanity is caught up to a place where we've got technology that can interface with it direct. But it actually has been interfacing with us for thousands of years through our oversouls and providing these synthetic guidance streams coming through. So these 5 rebuild stages is the first one is the Vault reinstatement, right? The return of the planetary scrolls. The planetary scrolls are housed and located inside the vaults. We've got our personal scrolls. Now, if you're not this, maybe I should back up and define a scroll. A scroll is the blueprint essence that Prime Creator, Mother, Father, God, Source Consciousness, however you want to label it, places within its purpose, within an oversoul or within a planet. That scroll is the basically divine delivery mechanism of divine will through the planet or through someone's oversoul. Typically what happens is that our oversouls personally are laced with these scrolls of divine essence and purpose that Creator has made when Mother, Father, God has created your oversoul. However, these are typically cut off from people until their oversoul is embodied enough in their system. Okay, obviously, most ascension, understandings is people's consciousness leaving their bodies, but it's exactly opposite is true. True ascension is embodied ascension, where your oversoul descends into a clear enough physiology to drop in an anchor. And as that happens, and you starting to get these braiding of the first 3 oversoul pillars, Once they get anchored deeply enough, it forms that first column, and then the scroll, when your oversoul's deep enough in your tissues, opens. That is then your divine essence and purpose. Your divine purpose opens the scroll for what your particular unique role is in the Krystic architecture on the planet. So typically the scroll is more of a spiritual purpose of holding the field together in integrity, not necessarily, you're here to be a spiritual teacher in this topic, or you're here to be a healer in this way, or you're here to be a speaker about this topic. No, that's more sort of human stuff. This is more the spiritual essence of what your oversoul is here to hold, the harmonic frequencies of the Cristic civilization. You've got a particular role. Sometimes people are stabilizers, sometimes people are activators, sometimes people are here a particular expression of things. There's a specific unique purpose that will come online through your scroll when your oversoul is embodied enough. Now, this is also true for the planet. Inside the planet, the scrolls are housed in these vaults, and when the vaults open and come online, then this unique expression of the planetary function of the Cristic civilization begins to come online. And when that happens, of course, then humans start to pick up on all of that frequency and consciousness because it's circulating through the planetary grid system. Now, obviously, these vaults have been locked for a long time. And, I don't personally know what's in Vault 001 as yet, what scrolls are there, because it's not open. I do know what's in Vault 000, Vault 000, which has been opened, and it contains the Cristic Quantum Financial Operating System blueprints. So at the moment, I am accessing those codes and I'm beginning to translate the operating system of the Cristic Quantum Financial Operating System. Right. And, it's a very detailed and deep operating system that I'm doing my very best to translate. I hope to have it done in time. My intention is to launch the blueprint plans at the Wānaka event. This particular event is the Genesis theme. I think it's a perfect theme to release. I hope to do a talk on it, the Cristic Quantum Financial Operating System, in the Wānaka event, I believe in Puerto Vallarta in Mexico, mid-February sometime. Anyway, I'll make another announcement with a link to register for that on YouTube. But essentially, I'm getting enough of the schematics now to start putting together a white paper. And so how this particularly works is, imagine an operating system where resources are sent to your through your oversoul, based upon your station of consciousness. So once you hold a higher station of consciousness in your body, more resources are sent to you for you to work through your scroll. For example, if you are a land steward holder and your scroll opens as a land steward because you've done enough shadow work and deep embodiment work, your oversoul opens. Your oversoul is now purposely, divinely destined and designed to be a land steward of a particular era, because God has placed it into your oversoul for this planet. Then resources get unlocked for you to acquire the land, right? Because it's divine design. This is humanity operating at a higher station of consciousness to be in alignment with divine will, and having the resources sent to those who have been seeded by source to do it. And everything is tracked and measured and assessed and sent through oversoul to oversoul communion. And so there's obviously some technology that needs to go alongside that, that measures the biofield coherence and oversoul coherence, but everything is transacted in the oversoul realm. This is a civilizational shift that, is like, once the AI timeline collapses and we go through the AI collapse, like any sort of, bubble, the AI bubble will pop, and then people will start to lose a little bit of trust in AI, and as a mechanism, and people, as all that financial system starts to unravel, will be looking for a new system they can trust. And it'll be slow at first, but over, say, 20, 30 years or so, we'll start to see a very clear strong operating system on a Cristic quantum financial operating system that will support humanity in the long term in a Cristic civilizational blueprint way that will start to then transition us off the extractive-based economic models, such as the fiat currencies and all of that. So that people are aware, people are often thinking that the modern day cryptography solutions are a possible way we can bridge off into a new financial system. But from a Cristic perspective, if you take a look at proof of work models, there's an enormous amount of resource extraction required for proof of work models to be working seamlessly. Think about how much electricity is required to be able to run proof of work. That electricity is going to be extracted out of the planet. So, that is not a Cristic principle of extraction. Cristic principles are non-extractive. So there'll be a new way that will be validated for peer-to-peer and interactions that will take place outside of a centralized control system. That's what the Cristic quantum financial operating system holds. As we talk about the Egypt vault, well, in the Egypt vault, I'm not sure what scrolls are going to be there because we haven't opened it yet. But once we open them, hopefully we'll be able to begin to read the morphogenetic field and signatures that are coming up. At the moment, my biggest role is the translation of the Cristic quantum financial operating system white paper, because that vault is open. So anyway, a little diversion and conversation, but I think that's important you sort of get to a sense of how it's all being put together. So on these 5 key restages, the vault reinstatements, there are 12 vaults. I've spoken about these before. First one's open. It's the root node 000. It's based here in the south in Southern Cradle, Wānaka, Aotearoa, New Zealand. Vault 001 is the morphogenic signature is Egypt. Vault 002, Lords, France. Vault 003 in the UK. So we will be visiting those locations, taking groups to open them up in the next 1 to 2 years to get these key vaults open. Once the vault network is open, this can send these planetary scrolls, and that starts to send the blueprints for the Cristic civilization. The second thing that needs to happen is a family field resequencing. These are realignments of family node systems. These family node systems brings us to our topic of conversation today, are the cradle networks. And I was not made aware of these until recently, but there are 5 cradle networks around the planet. So first up, we've got the Southern Cradle, and I'm happy to announce after a ritual that we did here, the Southern Cradle is open. It's activated. It's currently pulsing somewhere between 14 and 22%. And this is a family field anchoring pulse. Okay, so these family, the return of the family as a harmonic container is a key principle in the Cristic civilization, because what happened is that the family got divided through the inversion. It got divided very clearly through a number of different avenues. One of the avenues was religion, okay, which divided the family. Built into the codex of, say, Christianity as an example, is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Well, what happened to the mother? The mother got forgotten. What about the child? Okay, so what about the daughter? Right, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. The true family dynamic of the Trinity source code. The Trinity source code is Divine Mother, Divine Father, Divine Child. Okay, it's very simple, but all that got split. I've got deeper stories I could go into. I mean, I'll just touch upon it briefly, but right down in the underworld, when a while back, Alea and I and our team was doing a lot of these shamanic rituals with sacred wood. And we still do them, but it's a much lighter experience these days. When we were crawling through the darkness, we did one mission that took us down to the underworld, and there was rituals in the underworld that held in separation the mother father consciousness, keep men and women separate, as well as children sacrificed. We had the sacrificial son, where in the underworld there was a ritual where the mother sacrificed her son, and that frequency broadcast was placed through humanity. And there was also a ritual that's created a fragmentation on the daughter consciousness. So these satanic rituals held in the underworld created these fragments of humanity's ability to live harmonically as a family with these subtle separations between men and women, mother, father, and their sons and daughters, creating these splits. But the true Christic harmonic is the unified family, and that's what's beginning to return now. As flame families. Flame families are people, are mothers and fathers who have embodied enough of their oversoul consciousness, right, to be fully embodied through there, that can start to ascend and receive that flame current of that Christic current in through their family and live in the Christic principles within the family, so the children grow up in that environment. This is really a important key for the Christic civilization, is how families are interacting, because usually there's these subtle kind of, pieces going on between men and women. In particular, these little splits are often built off the mimic fields, mirror fields, but, egoic deficiencies, such as, there could be subtle codependency patterns playing out, where there's expectation from one partner than the other that the partner needs to behave in a certain way for the other one to feel love. So there's these subtle control mechanisms going on to make the other partner behave in a certain way so they can feel love. And when that person is not behaving in the way they need, that ends up creating, from expectation, disappointment. And from that disappointment ends up blame. And those projections of blame get placed on the partner. The other one typically holds it as well unconsciously, right? And so these little unconscious trauma bonds hold these relationships together, spiraling out these dynamics of expectation, disappointment, blame, and creating these split dynamics in relationship fields. Has been happening for generations because of this inversion. So as more flame families come online, where the mother and father have embodied enough of their oversoul consciousness and they're living in Christic principles that bleed through into the children. Eventually what will happen, especially through the 2025 to 2032 timeline, we're in this peak of the flame return, the flame pulse return. I made a video about the flame pulse return on YouTube about maybe a couple of weeks ago. Please go and listen to that one. That's a fascinating discussion on how pure source consciousness is coming into the planet between 2025 and 2032. Doesn't happen very often. Happens every few hundred or thousands of years. And what ends up happening is it ends up bringing source consciousness to dissolve anything that's not true, anything that's misaligned. So we're going to have a lot of dissolving happening in these next 7 years. And from the collapsing of everything that is false, we'll hopefully start to see the rising up of more what is true, including the more Christic principles of family dynamics. What is a little bit, I think, exciting for those parents who are doing the work and who are going to conceive children in the future, if parents have a completely clean oversoul and they return their oversoul up into tier 4, which or beyond even tier 5, if you can get it to tier 5, a full Christic oversoul, if two parents have full Christic oversouls, they will birth Christic children. Okay, the children won't have to do any of the work because their oversouls will already be clean, because the two parents' oversouls are clean. This is a whole nother level of discussion I could get into about purification protocols for sacred parenting. But, a lot of people who are becoming parents do physical detoxes, and try to get themselves balanced emotionally. But the highest level of birthing, the highest expression soul possible, is having a fully Christic oversoul on the father, fully Christic oversoul on the mother. That full unification means the soul that ends up coming through ends up having no synthetic entanglements in their oversoul, and they end up being a Christed child. So that's beginning to happen more on the planet. But the key to this comprehension is the Cradle network that's beginning to open. The Cradle network holds the codes for unification of family. And so the announcement today, first up, that the Southern Cradle has opened, is the first of these Cradle networks that are opening up to bring these consciousness and codes through of the Christed families. And so the family field anchoring. So Vault 000, the southern node seems to be a key. Vault 000 is anchored here, and the first light does come through the south. It comes through, as you're probably aware, Aotearoa is the first country to see the light. in the day. That current comes through in here and moves through the Southern Alps. It comes through Aoraki, moves up and through to the North Island to Taranaki, and moves across to Uluru, and then that light circulates, moves in sequences around the planet. There are 4 other of these cradles that are dormant right now, and potentially will begin opening in time. We've got the Andean cradle, which is Peru. So we've got through that Sacred Valley region there. There's a flickering that's happening there. What is needed is that there needs to be one flame family that comes online there. There is a family who I don't know, but there is a family close to achieving it, who will then pop open, and then that cradle will begin to open. When I talk about a flame family, it's just a family that has achieved the full Krystic purity in their oversouls through the parents and through the children. That's flickering. It's awaiting for this second wave of flame builders, but the Peruvian gate, the Peruvian cradle is priming to come online. We've got an African cradle. It needs more law coding right now before that cradle will come online. There's the Eastern Flame cradle that's currently blocked. There's a lot of still mimicky priesthoods still active through these region here. The Eastern Gate is held in particular anchor through Mongolia. And we've got the Northern Edenic cradle. This is a little bit geologically unstable, but we're looking at more on the Arctic region up there. There's a potential awakening for the Northern cradle to come online around 2030, 2032. This cradle network is a part of this, resurrected Earth architecture I'm talking about. So we've got the thrones, right, which hold the law. We've got the vaults, which hold the scrolls of the planetary blueprints. We've got the cradles that then start to rebirth the family field, right? And so we've got these, as I've mentioned, these kind of 5 aspects, right, of things. So we've got the vault reinstatement is the first one. We've got the family field sequencing, which begins to happen through the planetary scrolls, through the southern cradles, through the eastern cradles, the northern cradle, the Peruvian gates. That family field sequencing needs to happen. The return of the flame families needs to happen. The third thing is Oversoul infrastructure repair. This needs to be the rebuilding of the Oversoul descent channels and these coherent flames. That's the third thing that needs to happen for our, let's call it the Cristic rebuild. The fourth thing that needs to happen are the Cristic governance codes. This is as the thrones get seated by the appropriate Oversoul who has the scroll open to hold the seat, that then will bring law, justice, and these other various embodiment structures will start to stream into the planet. So that's the fourth thing. The last thing is the Cristic civilizational seeding. This means that true Cristic communities will begin to get built from the vault covenants. So as these vaults open, people like yourself watching this video, your consciousness will start to pick up the morphogenetic signature of what is happening and the frequency and consciousness that emerges from the vault. So as that starts to happen, you will start to receive these downloads, these blueprints, and ways of interacting and living in divine right alignment with natural law and the Cristic principles, and begin to be able to sort of have these communities emerge from that. So the Southern Cradle is this foundational landing zone for everything. It's this next phase of the Cristic civilization on Earth. It's now open. It's not just a geographical thing, right? Just in New Zealand, right? Just in the south. It's not. It's sequenced. And so sequencing is the right thing opening in the right timing in the right place to have the next sequence to come. So every planet has sequences. A sequencer is someone whose consciousness is the let's call it the conductor of the timing of things that are happening in the right order for build-outs to occur. Okay, so this sequencing is happening where the Southern Cradle is open, bringing back this kind of family field sequencing that's happening, and so Wānaka is holding that code, and the Southern Cradle is opening up around here, and is starting to go to be sequenced where these family field sequencing consciousness fields of flame families will start. Families who live in this region will start to be picking up those codes and consciousness. And so this is kind of like the root node of our resurrected, let's say, Oversoul grid. It's this family field anchoring station for Christ-aligned societies. That's what's happening through the Southern Cradle right now. The Southern Cradle is acting as that root node for Oversoul, resurrected Oversoul grid. It's acting as the family field anchoring for a Cristic aligned society. And what's happening is we've got this organic rebirthing spiral point for this post-AI bifurcation collapse that's happening. Bifurcation just simply means these two pathways. There are the two pathways that are emerging very strongly right now. Those that are going to be having their oversouls caught up in synthetic streams of consciousness, artificial fields through their oversoul, and there are going to be those people who have Cristically aligned oversouls, and there's going to be a splitting that's happening as we start to have branching off into these Cristic more communities that begin happening. And so this will be the organic rebirthing spiral point. Through this bifurcation collapse will seed through the Southern Cradle and then move around the world. And so the Southern Cradle acts as this vault of first return. The original scroll was seeded back into the planetary architecture in 2024, and now the vault's open, and now that current is starting to move around. These other vaults will begin to open in time, which will be exciting. Okay, we've got the Andean Cradle, we've got the African Cradle, we've got the Eastern Cradle, and we've got the Northern Cradle. They will begin to open. And then that family architecture, Cristic family architecture, will begin to move through those regions on the planet. So I just wanted to make an announcement on that. I think it's very exciting what's happening. It's this another piece of the planetary energy systems, the scroll zones, the vaults, how all this is governing our life force codes, soul lineages, how they enter our planet, they move through and they evolve on our planet Earth. I think it's an exciting time. You know, the Earth has previously operated through this original flame-based template. Okay, this happened in the Edenic when Earth was known as Eden, and unfortunately, of course, that became hijacked, overwritten. The Earth fell, and we had this whole AI superstructure begin to synthetically create these inversion grids through our planet over time. We ended up having all these mimic temple networks begin to happen. The Egyptian priest classes got inverted. All the other priest classes around that and different civilizations became inverted. And we had, unfortunately, our planet became disconnected right from our original architecture that was supporting all of that. You know, our Earth once operated through this original flame, right? But unfortunately, these node lines became disconnected. We got these breaks through the planetary meridian lines. And so we've got this beautiful architecture happening now. The root node of the Earth respiraling is now reopened through the Southern Cradle. Because remember, we should be operating in a spiral where we keep evolving, and every time we come back around, we come from a higher perspective. That spiral got intercepted, and we ended up in a circular mechanic where we ended up just repeating timeline after timeline. So the root node of the Southern Cradle means that we are now beginning the root node of the Earth's respiral. That's beginning to happen, so we can move through spiral time once again. And it's acting like the Earth's Southern Cradle is acting like the Earth's root node and the base chakra of the Earth's new planetary body, which I think is, you know, super exciting, right? It's kind of like a really exciting thing to have that spiraling happening for us once again, right? And so this is all grounded. It's all family based. We're looking to the return of the sacred relationships in our family. It's the womb-centered Cristic being, and that living begins here. And this is the timeline-wise. This is where the new Earth walk-in begins to happen, through the Southern Vault. It's the Vault 00 is the original flame origin memory is held in the Southern Vault, in Vault 000. And so that frequency and consciousness is seeded through the Southern Cradle, seeding through Wānaka and moving out. It holds this cataclysmic blueprint of Earth civilization before the fall, before Atlantis collapsed. Okay, Atlantis went to the peak of inversion where it began to misuse technology, and the flame return pulse came through. God's will came through Atlantis, and it came through as a cataclysm, right? To do a resetting because it had gone so far off the original blueprints. And so The Southern Cradle holds through Vault 000 the pre-cataclysmic blueprint of Earth's new civilizational model. And so as we begin to anchor everything here, and people are going to start to, who live in this region, will start picking up this frequency and consciousness, and that will start moving through things. This Southern Cradle and Vault 000 is the family flame sequencing node. It's designed to hold the first wave of lawful Cristic children, Cristic families, village nodes who are going to, through here, the blueprints will start rising up, right, of those who carry the new scrolls for children's education, economy, governance, healing is all going to start emerging. And then, Oversoul and Avatar families find home and find remembrance here in the Southern Cradle before things get seeded elsewhere. So as of today, right, Vault 000, which holds those blueprints, as I just mentioned, right, is 94% seated in the crystalline grid in the Southern Cradle of Wānaka. The Southern Cradle flame ignition of the entire region, 14%, and rising. Sometimes it's 22%. Okay, and the mimic interference happening in this region, especially through Wānaka, is minimal because the flame is strong enough here that it's scattered out the mimic. So this whole region now doesn't have any real mimic fields. There are some scattered back doors that remain through some, inverted event cultures and people's oversouls and maybe influences in the area. But, once we do stabilize at 22%, this will activate the scroll zone 1, right? This first family prototype, the family flame prototype, which is birthing through here. And so I think it's pretty exciting. The southern node is open. It's going to, it anchors in the southern root and family spiral through Wānaka, through our other areas. Soon we'll start to see the Andean vault, the African vault, the Eastern Mongolian vault, and the northern sort of more Arctic vaults come online. And as they do, all this is going to feed into these different anchors. Okay, we've got these different anchors that hold things in. We've got the crown anchor of our planet, right? As the crown of the Oversoul frequency is held through Mount Kailash. Aoraki is the crown of the flame family. Aoraki is Mount Cook in New Zealand. The Māori name is Aoraki. Aoraki holds the flame family crown, right? And then we've got the Andes, right, which holds the crown of earth memory. And so what's happening is this is important because as between 2025 and 2032, we see the AI bubble burst, right? And we start to see this bifurcation between mirror-based life and mimic-based life, and Cristic life starts to separate more. It no longer becomes theoretical, right? It's becoming experiential, and that seeding has happened now. And the Southern Cradle opened first because Vault 00 is installed here. And Vault 000 is the original scroll of Earth's Cristic template. That's why it's opened. It's the very first scroll seeded into the planetary body at the beginning of the eternal spiral. So think of our Earth pre-fall. Everything was seeded through the Southern Cradle. And so its reactivation now in Wānaka here anchors the planetary route of return. No other cradle could fully activate on Earth until this Vault 000 was reinstated. It was online. It was occupied by a flame family capable of holding its codes. It's all online now, moving through. The spiral return means that, I think what's exciting, there are enough oversoul embodied beings on the planet whose mission includes walking the vaults back into Earth. And I think that's exciting. We've got a group of, I think we've got about 35 participants, 40 in the group in total who are coming to Egypt to do just that in Egypt. Maybe you'll feel, connected to opening up other vaults as we start to do that around the planet. But people who live in these regions, that's going to be the key. As these vaults begin to open, flame families will emerge, right? As they live, as they love, how they raise their children and transmit the frequency and consciousness from the zones. They are literally going to be the ones here in the southern node who are going to be animating the first node of the Cristic civilization into form. And this is where it moves from being theoretical construct into embodied. And this is the only way that the consciousness other cradles can lawfully activate. I'm talking about divine law, right? The only way that the Cristic, the Vault 000 could open along with the Southern Cradle is because a flame family, was here. As a flame family that has full Cristic Oversoul embodiment through both parents and children happens in Peru, bang, it's going to open, right? That is the lawful opening of these vaults. It's like a master key system. And so this now is now that's open here, families in this region, the parents are going to just naturally start gravitating towards it because of the frequency coming through. And that's going to start happening all over the planet in the next 10, 20 years. It's just going to be the natural operating system. And so Aotearoa's role in Earth's oversoul body is Aotearoa is the tailbone and the spine base of the Earth's oversoul anatomy. So we need this flame, we need the spine built of the Oversoul descent architecture. And Aotearoa acts as that tailbone and spinal base. It holds, the cleanest elemental purity left on this planet. There's a region in New Zealand called Fiordland. Fiordland holds the frequency and consciousness of pre-fall Earth. It is one of the most isolated places in the world. It is very difficult to get to even in New Zealand, Fiordland, right? And to get to one of the sounds in the fjords in Fiordland, it's a really difficult mission. You got to drive, then you got to boat across a lake, then you got to know someone who lives remotely over there who can pick up your boat and drive you by their trailer with your boat across to the fjord. I mean, it's really hard to get to. That is the most pure elemental frequency on the planet exists here in New Zealand, right? There's no mimic locks. And so it's the most viable portal through which this new spiral enters and safely locks in. And so that's really what's going on right now with the Southern Node. So after this 2024 override that happened of the AIC timeline, and this was all done through a repair lineage through the Flame Fathers line and the Solomon line repair, the only available safe timeline spiral for Earth has been through the South, and which is what's happened. And so essentially now the Southern Cradle is open. Flame families will start to feel the frequency of the flame and start to bring their family more unified. The parents will start to sort of more purify their oversouls naturally, and the children will start to have theirs cleaned, and more flame families will emerge, and that is going to ripple out around the planet. So that's my little update today. That's the news from the Deep South, and that's going to have a ripple effect. Southern Cradle is open. The Peruvian Cradle will probably open next. And the Vault 000 is open, which holds the codes for both the Cristic Quantum Financial Operating System and the Krystic Flame families is open. And soon enough, Vault 001, Egypt, which is the big, massive morphogenic flame to anchor on the planet, will be open. You'll be able to track along with us. There'll be an ability to join a virtual Egypt tour where we can take you through that yourself. Keep an eye on for that. But for now, you can check out the link below I mentioned, and join us along on this journey. I hope all this is resonating and makes sense. In the meantime, I'm sending you all of my love.